This is 20th level commoners for Zodiac, the Final Fantasy RPG 3rd edition. Hey everybody, welcome back to 20th level commoners. I am Vincent.
I am Cody.
Yes, Cody. Today we're going to talk to you about a fan-made RPG. It goes by the name of Zodiac, the Final Fantasy RPG. This is the 3rd edition, and this is one of 2 Final Fantasy RPGs that I know of that is kind of built from the ground up to kind of emulate Final Fantasy and its world and its concepts. And this is the first one we're going to talk about because this is the first one we tried.
Yeah.
We tried these one after the other. And when we get to the end of FF3 RPG, which is the other one, we're going to give you a little compare and contrast of the two. But for now, we're going to talk about this one. So, Cody, the lore of Final Fantasy, what's it kind of based in?
Well, we could probably do an entire podcast on that alone. But long story short, Final Fantasy was started out as an unofficial Dungeons and Dragons game, and then it sort of built its own sort of high fantasy mythology.
Across 13 games?
Yes.
Close to 20, actually.
Yeah, counting like the non-numbered bits,
Yeah.
it's close to 20.
And the sequel to the numbered bits.
To where nowadays the aesthetic, even though they're not connected by story really, even if in rare cases they're in the same setting, like how Tactic's in the same setting as 12 and how Type O is in the same setting as 13, they happen hundreds of years apart and they're not really connected at all. What they do share is this kind of aesthetic of this kind of high magic as technology. Even the very first games, you had like these airships and rifles and lasers and robots and stuff, powered by magic.
The more steampunky aspects didn't start coming around until 5, right?
Yeah,
4 or
like
5.
there were definitely hints of it as early as 3, maybe 2. But again, like there were airships in 1, but it really started like hitting you over the head with it in 5, when 5 is basically just a sci-fi story with fantasy elements.
That's the one where you start out as like the brainwashed chick in the mech, right?
That's 6.
6, well, close.
6 is the good one that everyone loves for good reason. The game is fucking amazing, but it's done with this style of like pretty androgynous characters, artful to the point of goofy hairstyles.
They have only gotten goofier.
And the infatuation with crystals.
Yeah. So gameplay-wise, Final Fantasy is, for like 3 of you who don't know, it's a turn-based Japanese RPG series.
Yes.
Kind of characterized by big flashy spells, big numbers, like over 10,000. By a ability to... A lot of the games are kind of defined by their kind of customization, because the systems to Final Fantasy games, they all run on the same philosophy of kind of big flashy fights with lots of damage and lots of cool summons that do cool things, but mechanically they're very different. Like the differences between 7 and 8 are astronomical.
Yeah, and those are 2 of the more similar games, like gameplay wise. Like the difference between 6 and 7 or 7 and 9 is they're just different games.
You know, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
1 and 2 even.
Oh.
You know.
They're very, very different.
Yeah, so like, you know, you take 2 that had kind of an Elder Scrolls-y style level up system where the more someone used something, the more they got better. 1 was basically just basic D&D.
Yeah.
7 has this materia ability system where your abilities level up as you use them, and your weapons determine how many you can have.
And 8, it has this junction mechanic where you basically just go under the hood and hack your characters.
And that's actually a big aspect too, because just the idea of just tinkering with your character until they are just gods.
Yeah, every Final Fantasy game, good or bad, has the ability to completely break the shit out of it and humiliate the final boss.
A tradition they carried over to Kingdom Hearts, and I am proud of that.
Yes.
But so that's the philosophy of Final Fantasy. Is it's kind of like Pacific Rim, and if you want to spend enough time tuning your mech, you can punch Godzilla into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
There you go, Square Enix. Use that for the 15 box quote.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Punch Godzilla into the stratosphere. And so that's kind of the philosophy that these games are trying to capture, and they go about very different ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So Zodiac is a lot closer to basic D&D. It has abstracted concepts.
Yeah.
Combat is abstracted. There is a map combat add-on you can use.
But you really shouldn't. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
That is the main thing I remember from us playing that. That we would have been better off just going gridless.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of has gridless combat system. It lines everything up the same way. It's kind of assuming you guys are like standing across from each other, running over each other, taking hits, and then running back to your position, a la any game before 10 or any game before 12.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus here is much like your ability to go in and hack your characters and create what you want. The focus here is on creation in Zodiac, on making your character exactly the way you want him to be. And this level of freedom inherently has advantages and disadvantages, and we will get into that. But I think as kind of a brief overview, what would you say about Zodiac?
I would say it's ambitious and it does a lot of really interesting things. In the end, though, I feel that it adopts a lot of things from Final Fantasy that should have been meshed into a tabletop, and a lot of things that they maybe should have gotten from Final Fantasy. But in total, like, I say it's a good system.
Mm-hmm. So let's break it down. So when you're creating your character, you've got 5 stats: strength, magic, vitality, spirit, and agility. All of these stats start at 3. They can't go higher than 15 at creation. You get 25 points in a 1-to-1 system to raise and lower these stats. Armor and weapon, there are no specifics about it. It's a lot like Tephra. But in that regard, what you do is you pick a type of armor, magic, balanced, or defense. And depending on which type of armor you pick, much like in Final Fantasy Tactics, it determines how much bonus HP you get from that armor and how much bonus MP you get from the armor. So if you're going to be a mage, you pick the mage armor and you have more MP but lower HP. Vice versa for the defense, and in between for balanced. You can also have guards, which is the catch-all term for shields, arm guards, bracers, whatever, what have you. Weapons, there is no 2-weapon fighting that I know of. So, if you wanted to play a tactics ninja, whatever. But basically, it works the same way, where you have a number of points. You have 6 points for every weapon that you split between your physical attack and your magical attack. And that determines if your weapon is more physical or more magical. So the higher number you have, the higher the damage dice and the higher the kind of base damage that weapon does with that certain kind of attack. So there's, obviously 2 kinds of attack. There's physical attacks and there's magical attacks. And so the lowest you can put those is 1, the highest is 5. So you get 6 points. You can max those out if you want. So say you put 5 points into your physical score and 1 point into the magical score of your weapon. That means that weapon is very good at doing physical damage, but is almost useless at magical damage. And if you're a big fighter, that's great.
Yeah. And if you're a pure wizard, that's also great.
Yeah, just switch them.
I mean, if you're going to make a Magus, you really need to just get off the fence and pick one or the other, though.
Yeah, this game does reward specialization. Now, here's kind of where we start to hit the confusing part of this game.
Oh, boy.
So, from your base stats, you have your derived stats, like every other game. All of these stats are hit points, magic points, attack power, strength dice, magic dice, accuracy, magic accuracy, evade, resist, critical, speed, and max tech levels. We will get to tech levels in a second.
Can I actually say first, though, I actually sort of admire how they did the system. Like, they have a small number of stats to influence a large number of stats. You can kind of get that feeling from having the whole bunch of stats on Final Fantasy. Again, I'm not sure if it's what they should have done, but they did that really well, I thought.
And so there's actually a pretty handy table here on page 6 of the document that shows them all. And it shows what increases them, and it shows their base value. So everyone has a base value of 75 HP and 5 magic points, 5 MP. And those go up depending on how many points you put in Vitality for hit points and Spirit for magic. Your attack power and your magic attack power is your base damage. It's the plus 10 on your, basically your strength score or your dex score, like in Pathfinder. The dice is how many dice you roll on an attack. So it's almost certainly going to be 1 because your strength and magic dice, you roll another dice for every 100 strength and 100 magic you have. So it's going to take a long time before you can roll 2 dice just normally. Though there are a lot of skills that will let you roll more weapon dice, which is a bigger deal than it would be in Pathfinder.
Yes.
And we'll get to that when we get to combat. Accuracy is your chance to hit. This is a D100 percentile system. So you're just trying to roll a certain percentage on a D100. So you would roll the D100, add your accuracy, and try to get under your opponent's evade. Magic accuracy is the same as physical accuracy, except it only applies to magic.
Yeah.
Evade is your chance to dodge. It starts at 25. It goes up by +1 for every 5 agility, and it's modified by a guard. This is your AC. So they have to roll over this number on a D100 to hit you.
Yeah.
25 +1 per 5 agility modified by guard. The guard is like maybe a +2.
You're going to get hit.
You're going to get hit hard.
This is maybe the biggest thing they shouldn't have emulated from Final Fantasy. This idea that evasion is basically useless until late level.
Not even late level, honestly. Because, like, +1 per 5 agility, that's going to take a long time before anything comes out of it. Because, again, you're subtracting their accuracy from your evade.
Yeah.
And there's the command skill that we will talk about later. So resist is your magical evade. Works the same way. Your critical is the number you have to roll at or over to score a critical hit, which is double damage. So at the base value, if you roll a 98 on a D100, you score a crit, double damage. So for every 15 agility you have, that number is lowered by 1.
Yeah, and believe me, I've tried to min-max this. You can't get more than 15 agility at starting.
Well, yeah, that's the base.
Yeah.
That's the max.
Yeah.
You can't go higher on character creation.
And so, again, just...
Speed dictates your number of actions, how many actions you get, and when you go. There is no initiative roll in this game. It's all based on your speed stat, who goes when. And so this stat starts at 10 and gets +1 for every 15 agility and +1 for every 10 XP levels, which is basically every 10 levels. So speed is not only what determines your initiative, but it determines how many times you can move within a turn. So to take any action, with the exception of charge time attacks, you have to spend 8 speed points.
Yeah.
And so you spend 8 speed points, and that will let you take an action, 1 action and 1 free action. And the 2 points you have left over are carried over to the next round and added when you get speed again. Because you get... So I'll explain this more when we get to combat. Your max tech levels is the maximum level your powers can be at, because your powers run on a level system when you make them. Speaking of powers, step 6 is to make your class powers, which all require MP to use, except they don't. I'll get to that in a second. You have 2 you can pick. You can pick tech, which is where you customize your own abilities, or you can take blue magic, where you use different abilities to gain abilities from your enemies. You can't have both. It has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
So tech creation is based around a point system and a lot of graphs.
Oh, dear Lord, the tech
A
system.
lot of graphs.
I'm still not sure I 100% get the tech system.
So the technique system, or the tech system, is how you come up with like your magic spells and your like power break and all the little abilities everyone gets in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So this functions on a system where it is you get a certain number of what are called tech points every level. You also get bonus tech points based on your magic stat. So if your magic stat is higher, you have more technique points. And this is important because technique is how you get magical attacks. It's the only way to get magical attacks, which are essentially spells. So if you want to be a wizard, you're going to need a lot of tech points, because you're going to need a lot of tech points to spend those tech points to create spells.
Yeah.
So the tech level is how strong that spell will be. And for every tech level, there are 3 sub-levels you can pick that will also determine how much MP it costs and how much damage the thing does.
Yeah.
The tech does. So you pick a tech level and then you pick a power level. So the tech level goes from 1 to 9. The power levels go from weak, medium to strong. And depending on the technique, you can pick anything on that little grid, which is shown on page 10. And depending on where you fall in that grid, that determines how much MP you will need to spend to get to use that ability. So obviously, if you pick a higher tech level with a stronger power, it's going to cost more MP.
Yeah.
Now, some technique abilities have to be at a certain tech level or a certain power, and the game will tell you. And it's for how much information it's trying to throw at you. It organizes it as best it can, but this might be a confusing read.
Yeah.
It was for us anyway. So the tech level is where your tech points come in. So your max tech level, which is a derived stat, is the maximum, the highest level tech you can take at that level. It's probably going to be 6. So tech points are used to buy tech levels. So if you wanted a technique that was at tech level 3, you would have to spend 30 technique points to get a tech level 3 ability. So the cost kind of goes up in a weird way, where a tech level 1 ability costs 8, a tech level 2 costs 15 tech points, a tech level 3 costs 30 tech points, a tech level 4 costs 60 tech points, a tech level 5 costs 125 tech points, and a tech level 6 costs 250 tech points. You might have 15 at first level. Might.
Yeah.
Well, I did. Well, actually, if you max out your magic stat, you could have close to 30. That's if you are grognarding the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
And just being a wizard. So the way you make these techniques is after you have selected your tech level, you have to pick a primary effect. And the primary effect is the ability, basically. They have stuff like attack magic. If you pick the attack magic primary effect, then it's like you make a spell. Good job. But there's also stuff like the break arts, which is kind of like Arn's ability set, or the knight ability set from Tactics. Power break, speed break, magic break, stuff like that. Armor break. Stuff like demi attack, heal ability, power attack, the ability to revive somebody. And these all have prerequisites on their tech level and their power level. You can always go above the prerequisite, but you can't ever go below it. So if something has to be power level medium, you can't pick a weak power level. You can't pick a weak power level. It has to be medium, always. Yeah. And sometimes, like in near fatal attack, you have to pick power level medium, and it's never, you can't pick strong or weak. The tech level is all that determines that.
Reading the spells is also the point where I noticed that it's a bit of a non sequitur, but this game has no flavor text whatsoever.
It's all tech. I think it's kind of assuming that, it's Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but when it describes attack magic as, it's like magic you attack with.
Yeah.
No. Is it like a bolt? Is it what? Give me something.
And that's, and the reason it doesn't do that is because this game is abstracting Final Fantasy to its basest components.
Yeah, this is distilled Final Fantasy.
Like, these aren't the parts that make up Final Fantasy. These are the nuts and bolts that make up the screws, that make up the panels, that make up the parts that make up Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's way down there. And so if you're okay with that, it is an incredibly customizable game.
Yeah, you're basically making your own Final Fantasy game.
Literally from the ground up.
Yeah, it's almost like this guy didn't know what they wanted to, which Final Fantasy they want to make. It's like, fuck it, let's let the player decide which Final Fantasy this is gonna be.
Yeah, so it's really like just a DM toolkit to make your own game.
Yeah, and looking at it like that, it's actually really good.
It's very good. It's just really complicated.
Yeah.
So in addition to the primary effect, you can have 2 secondary effects. And these effects allow you to add a little flavor to the primary effect. And the cost is you have to adjust the MP it costs by tech levels. So for instance, if you wanted a fireball, then you would go over here, pick elemental as a you pick. Okay, yeah. If you wanted to make like fire, your primary effect would be attack magic. The secondary effect would be elemental. And so basically you would just say it's a attack magic that has the elemental fire secondary effect. So it's fire. And for picking a single element, nothing happens to the MP cost. But let's say you wanted to have it be an AoE fire. So that's the thing. You can have an area of effect. However, the cost of that fire spell will be 1 tech level higher at the same power. So if you picked a tech level 1 fire at medium power and you put area of effect on it, the MP cost is actually that of a tech level 2 at medium power tech. And there are ones that'll actually lower it too. And so that's the main way you will inject flavor and kind of differentiate your abilities from everyone else's. Moving on, there is another way to use tech without using MP. So it was actually a lie when they said all tech uses MP. It doesn't have to. So this is a secondary effect that you don't have. It doesn't take up one of your slots. This is just a secondary effect. You say it does this, and it's called charge power. And this is, you're using speed points, which is derived from your speed stat, to power your abilities. So when I said earlier it takes 8 speed points to do an action, this will up the speed point cost, but you can use the ability without using MP, spending MP. So for a high speed character, this would be really cool. So for like a thief or a dragoon, you just roll all of your abilities off of charge power, and you can essentially use them with impunity.
Which is really nice.
That's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, you can min-max that pretty bad.
It's not that hard.
Like, really bad. I actually did that, by the way.
I did too.
It's so much nicer than MP. It comes right back.
Yeah, it's
you
like...
You don't need ether. You don't need...
I don't have to keep track of my
MP.
MP. I don't have to, like, think about how much MP I have left. I'm just like, I got the speed points for this.
It's like, you go from spells per day to the stamina bar in Dark Souls. Yeah. It's that fast.
Yeah. It's great.
Like, why wouldn't you do this?
From a mechanical standpoint, there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a wizard doing this? I cast fire.
Like, I was looking for a downside. I was wondering if you would point one out, but no. It's...
Not really.
It's just fucking good.
It's just that good. And everyone starts out with so much speed, so many speed points anyway. I mean, you start out with 10 right off the bat.
I have 11.
I have 12. That is enough to use a tech level 1 at medium power with impunity. Anything lower as well. And like I said, your leftover speed points, they carry over. So if you want to do a tech level 2 at medium power, just take an action one turn, you'll have 2 tech points left. The next turn, you'll get 10 more speed points, which will put you at 12, and then you can use that power for free.
Yeah. I didn't go quite that bad with it, but I totally went there.
This is... I get it. I do. But this is... that's a very easy point to break the game with. Just to make a... because you're making a wizard who doesn't have to... One, he goes first in initiative because his CSAT is just abused to hell. 2, he has a higher evasion. And 3, he's just using fucking magic attacks. Like it ain't no thing. It's like in Final Fantasy X when you find that doll that lets Lulu use all of her abilities at 1 MP. Well, the game's done.
To be fair,
this is it, waving the white flag.
Pretty accurate to Final Fantasy.
It is! And that's... God... is, and that's the good and the bad part about it. You can also summon in this game. We'll get to that in a second because it's a bitch.
Yeah.
So blue magic. There are 3 ways you can learn enemy skills. You can choose one and only one at character creation, and you can have a maximum number of tech levels equal to 5 plus your magic divided by 2. Learning an enemy skill is permanent, and it cannot be unlearned. They can also never be upgraded. You are relying entirely on your GM being a nice guy and giving you cool abilities to learn, by the way, if you take this. Anyway, the first one is memory. Characters who choose the memory method learn their powers by experiencing them directly. A memory character who is struck by a monster's special ability automatically has the option of learning that power, assuming he survives the blow. In addition, a memory character has a 20% chance to learn any power that he observes, but is not targeted with directly. For example, an attack or an ally or a monster's healing magic.
Yeah.
That was probably my least favorite way to do this. That was how it worked in Tactics. That was actually how you had to learn the best summon in the game. Was you had to move a summoner into direct line of fire of the best summon in the game, have him take a direct hit, and live.
To be fair though, like blue magic, if we were doing a long campaign, this is totally what I would do.
Like a long ass campaign.
It would have to be a long ass campaign because those blue magic skills are really powerful. They're really high cost.
Yeah, that's true.
But you get to, like, when I was reading the actual names of attacks, like, 1,000 Needles, Aqualung, Trine. Oh my god, it's like we're in a fucking Final Fantasy game. This is the only flavor text they really had that makes it feel Final Fantasy-ish,
Yeah. Also, you'd have to be really careful if you're the DM. Just like, I let loose my charging death ray that drains all of your MP. Who are you attacking? Oh, yeah. Shit.
I would
now
play...
he has the charging death ray.
Yeah, if we were doing a campaign, I would play as Quina from Final Fantasy IX. I would get blue magic, and I would get cover. So anybody takes an interesting hit, it's mine. I gotta catch them all.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah, it would.
The second way you can learn blue magic is with lore. Characters who choose the lore method learn their powers as study and observation, rather than placing themselves directly in harm's way, like an idiot. As a normal action, a character with lore can study a monster and has a 50% chance to learn one of its special powers selected randomly or chosen by the dungeon master. He may also choose to single out a particular power that he has already seen, with a 70% chance to learn that specific power.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm gonna take a hit.
Okay. The third way is assimilate. Characters who choose the assimilate method learn their powers by somehow assimilating or consuming the monster itself. This would be the Steven method.
Okay, this would also be a Quina method, to be fair.
This would be the Steven method. An assimilate character may eat the monster, drain its life force, or in some way assimilate the monster. Such as with cyborgs, attach some part to the monster to themselves, something like that. To assimilate a monster, the character makes normal attack, dealing 1/5 of his normal damage. If the blow is enough to kill the monster, the assimilation is successful, and the character may select one of its special powers to learn. Only one power may be learned from an individual monster, but the character can assimilate multiple monsters of the same species in order to learn different powers. And like Cody was saying, these powers are just whatever the DM throws at you. And whatever they cost. So they have some sample ones here, like 1,000 Needles, which does exactly 100 points of damage to a single target.
Cheating. Bullshit. It should do 1,000.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's 10,000 Needles. It does 1,000. Never mind. Okay, sorry. I'm completely wrong there.
There's Hug, an unusual skill sometimes used by Medusae. Hug restores the target to full HP, but petrifies them. Don't know why you would do that. Level 5 death if you want to be a cheap bastard.
Yeah.
Suicide. The aggressive bombs and their exploder attack have made this last resort tactic infamous among adventurers. The user of suicide sacrifices himself, dropping him to 0 HP to deal an amount of damage to a single target equal to twice the amount of HP he had remaining. You don't die when you go to 0 HP in this game either. The game basically says, you have to get cutscene killed to actually die in this game.
Yeah.
So, hey. Next up on character creation, we have secondary skills. Secondary skills are the command skills that, basically everyone's gotten in every Final Fantasy game. Stuff like Draw Out, the Samurai's ability from Tactics, Jump, the famous Dragoon ability. Peep. I don't know what that does. I don't know where that's from. Oh, okay. Steal, obviously. Wish, which is Ram's ability from Tactics. But yeah. Double Cast, I think, is in here. But these secondary skills, there's two types. There's command skills and there's support skills. You pick one of each at first level. You do not get any more. You do not get any less. You pick one, motherfucker, and you stick with it. Coin toss. That's another good one. Chakra. And so these are your action skills. It's like in Final Fantasy IV, Kain had jump, or Cecil had darkness. Or in Final Fantasy VIII, where that ability was basically whatever you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
That's all those are. You might want to look at this list before you go making techs, because you might end up making a command skill as a tech, like I did. But your support skills are exactly what they sound like. They are passive skills that are always active. So stuff like Chemist, you heal double HP and MP normally when using potions. You can increase your attack power, cover, like Cody said, 25% or lower of their maximum HP. You can cover an ally. You can fly, which is stupid good in this game.
Yeah.
Quickness, which gives you a +2 to speed, which is really good. And Concentrate, where your melee attacks always hit. Your critical drops by 2 per 15 agility rather than 1. In addition, a critical hit by a character with Concentrate deals triple damage. Your physical attacks always hit. I want to make sure you guys heard that. Your physical attacks always hit. This is a support skill you can take at level 1. There is no restriction.
Yeah.
You can just do this. You can't use this on stuff like Death Blow, but
Yeah.
your physical attacks always hit. Because Evade wasn't useless enough.
I was very tempted to take this one, actually.
I'm going to let you know. I want to make sure you guys know this is here so you can ban the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason not to take that.
And I
No
know
reason
what
at
you're
all.
thinking, because I thought at first, oh, well, it's like you're always going to get hit anyway. But when you do things like steal or other special attacks, you take like a -40 to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, you've just negated it.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has a special hit that hits all the time.
Or you can do like me and do Power Attack, which does double damage dice.
Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah. Or Jump, which does double damage. So a guaranteed double damage hit. Why wouldn't you ever just always do that? I guess you have to wait a turn on Jump, but still. You're immune. Yeah, some of these are vastly superior to others in the support column. The command skills are all kind of equal, but the support skills are just, whoa! Hold up. Because some of them are just straight stat bonus. Some of them are concentrate. Some of them are you do more damage with physical attacks. They're not very well done, I would say.
Yeah.
Min-maxer is probably going to spend the most time here. Or not, if you don't ban concentrate. I'm warning you, you Monty Cook DMs out there who are just like, oh, it won't be that bad. No, it'll be that fucking bad. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Ban concentrate. Just wipe it from... Go into Photoshop, take the eraser tool, and just scrub that shit. Purge it from the records. It's gone. It's done. That's it. It's on page 36. Photoshop is $9.99 a month. It'll be worth it. Just do it. Now move on to equipment.
Equipment is pretty similar.
Yeah, equipment runs, like I said before, when you get weapons, you get 6 points to spend on how much physical damage your weapon does and how much magical damage your weapon does. The weapons, they don't have specific names.
Anything.
They're just levels, 1 to 10. And whenever you hit a certain point, you get the next level of weapon.
Yeah, I thought that Tefra's weapon system was pretty blank.
Yeah.
But like this isn't even like a ranged weapon, a two-handed weapon, a large weapon, a small weapon. It's
whatever
just
you want.
it is a weapon.
Yeah. So this is to kind of represent the vast number of weapon types they have, like megaphones, spoons, swords, axes, bows. I think someone used a flute in 9.
Yes, they use flutes in 6. No, they use flutes in 5 as well. The bard character, he uses a lute.
Waka used a ball.
Yes.
Used a beach ball.
You can do all sorts of stupid things in Final Fantasy. It's totally canon.
Yeah, totally. Go for it. So, like I said, in addition to determining your base damage, how many points you have in a certain category also determines your damage dice. Mm-hmm. So, if you have 1 point, your damage dice is D6. So, if you have 1 point in magic, all your magic does D6. 2 to 4, it goes up to D8. 5 points gets you a D10. So again, kind of rewarding min-maxing there.
Yeah.
So the reason you want to level up your weapons is it lets you get different enchantments. So the level of a weapon determines what kind of enchantments can go on it, or how many points you have to spend on them. So essentially, you have a number of points equal to half the level of the weapon to spend on enchantments. So if it's a level 1 weapon, it's 0 or 1.
Unless it's a 2-pointer.
Yeah. If it's a level 2 weapon, that cut in half is 1. You have 1 point. So a level 10 weapon has 5 points to spend on enchantments. And these are pretty much free. You can just have them on there.
Yeah.
And they work a lot like Pathfinder abilities or Pathfinder special weapons. So it's a lot like Tephra in that regard, where it's armor and weapons are just kind of abstracted into these vague categories, and then you just kind of customize and build to your heart extent. Armor works the same way. It has levels that give you bigger bonuses to HP and MP.
Nice.
And different bonuses depending on which class you took: enhanced, balanced, or defense. Enhanced being the magic armor. That's about all there is to say on that. They got potions. Yep. So combat. Like I said, at the beginning of each round of combat, all combatants receive a number of speed points equal to their speed rating. At the start of the first round of every combat, each combatant receives an additional D8 speed points. Give you another little boost to initiative. So rounds in this game can potentially be made up of multiple turns. So one round is made up of what are called ticks.
Yes.
And a tick is a turn. Basically, everyone is spending all of their speed points to do actions. But if someone has enough speed points to take 2 turns, they can do that. So, and the round won't restart until after they have spent all of their speed points.
Nice.
So the distinction is that stuff like poison and venom only works when the round ends, not the tick. No, wait.
That's another very complicated thing.
Yeah. Hang on. No, never mind. There is no reason to... Well, your speed points refresh when everyone's run out of speed points. Stuff like Venom and Regan, they all work after a tick has passed. My bad. Ignore everything I just said. It's basically a tick is a turn, but some people can act more than once in a turn, provided they have enough speed points. And like I said, if you have any spare speed points, they carry over when your points refresh. Attacking is you roll a d100, add your accuracy, and then try to get a roll greater than your target's evade. It's easy. At most, it's going to be like a 23 evade. Then you roll your damage dice, depending on how high your strength is and how high your physical or magical attack score is for your weapon. You take that weapon damage roll, you times it by 10, and then you add the total attack power, which is a derived stat. Which is a stat that is derived from your strength and your weapon. And that is how much damage you do. Pretty simple. Pretty clean. Magic works the same way. You have to use magical accuracy and magical attack. So, yeah. And the thing about weapon range is if you don't have the special ability long range, which you can take at first level if you choose to have... you basically just have to subtract 1 enchantment from all of your abilities, from all your weapons. If you're trying to hit a flying creature, because combat is abstracted, a flying creature can be hit by a melee attack, but you have a minus 60 to do it. If the weapon has a long range property, it ignores that. So that makes flying creatures sound like they're OP, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. Every tech in the game is considered long range.
Yeah.
So, you You have a big melee fighter, and they're just like, I'm flying, you can't hit me. You just use a tech, and you're good. Your tech's probably going to do like 300% damage anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Like, even steel and stuff, I was wondering if that forced you to do close range, because it wasn't saying it did. So
They're all considered long range. So yeah, that's... flying is... If it's just a physical one-on-one fight, if you're trying to hit someone with a melee attack who has the special property flying, you take a minus 60 to the roll.
Mm-hmm.
Which sucks. But the game goes, but you can use a tech, and it's okay.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, basically don't worry about it. You can also choose to defend by taking no actions during that round. If you do that, any damage you take is reduced by half. There are negative statuses in the game, just like Final Fantasy, which is another very wanted addition of flavor.
Yeah.
That's kind of combat in a nutshell. It's real slick, real efficient.
And it works.
It does. It does the job.
It works well, and but that's kind of all there is to it. There's no real non-combat, is there?
No, and stuff like flanking doesn't really exist. All the little combat maneuvers don't really exist.
Yeah, because this is meant to be played as Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's two rows of guys hitting each other, jumping back.
Mm-hmm. So summon creation. So your summon, you can spend tech points to create a summon tech. And the summon works like they do in Final Fantasy XII, where they just kind of stay out and do attacks. So if a summon, basically you have to burn MP every round to keep the summon out, and when you run out of MP, the summon goes away.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. So your summon has a separate character sheet. It's basically an animal companion. The summon has your stats times 3. So all of your stats tripled. And then it has higher base values too. And then it gets additional bonuses depending on... You have to make a signature tech, like Diamond Dust for Shiva, Lightning Bolt for Ramu, stuff like that. And depending on... And it's built the same way as a tech, with a primary and secondary effects. But depending on which primary effect you take, it'll also add bonuses to the character's... the summon's abilities.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it on that. There's a couple other nuances to it, but a quick read will show you what they're doing, and it's not that important.
You pretty much got the idea.
Yeah. Basically, you are allowed to have infinite power for like 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Unless you charge. No, actually, the game specifically says you can't use the charge on this. Have to spend MP for this, so... If you want to be a summoner, get that MP stat up. So that's a quick and dirty rundown of the mechanics of Zodiac. And on a quick thought, I would say if this game was played by a whole bunch of people who knew how to work it, knew how everything worked, didn't have to consult the tables constantly, didn't have to basically think, which I think would only take 2 or 3 sessions once everyone's kind of got their character down. This game would probably run faster even than Tephra.
I agree. Like,
it'd be, it's basic.
This game would kick ass if it was well written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of a big con to the game, is it's not very well spell checked or written, and it takes a lot of rereading to kind of figure out what they mean, and even then sometimes I don't actually feel confident that I know what they mean.
Yeah, again, like in the more confusing parts of Final Fantasy games. Like, did Skrull just beat the Sorceress Ultimisia with the power of believing in friendship? I don't know.
So. I don't know. Who cares? I beat it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this game, because it multiplies your damage dice by 10, it allows you to kind of hit those ridiculous numbers without having to roll 54 d8s, like I did at 17th level of Pathfinder. So it kind of approaches those high damage marks a lot more elegantly than a lot of systems. Like I said, it's a very nice, light design. It's only 97 pages long. It's highly customizable. Highly customizable.
To a fault.
That is a pro and a con to this system. If that's what you're looking for, you have found your holy grail, my sir. Some of the cons, though, you may have noticed it, but there's no skill system in this game.
No.
There's no RPGing, there's no RPing in this G whatsoever.
Yeah. It's just a playing game.
It's just a combat game, a pure combat engine, purer than D20, purer than Pathfinder.
Weird.
Yeah. Of course, you can take the basic D&D system, just kind of retrofit it to this, and you're fine. But
yeah, I was telling Vincent earlier, like the skill system that they use for thieves in basic D&D and AD&D, you can pretty much fit that on almost any game in the world, and it would work just fine.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't see how you're supposed to roleplay with this system.
I think maybe they want you to, again, like Final Fantasy, do these incredibly linear stories. Mm-hmm. It's weird, like, Final Fantasy are extremely open-ended games. You go all over the world, but the actual story is perfectly linear.
Yeah. Which kind of begs the question of how you would do something like 12 that kind of opens the whole game up from the start.
Yeah, a game that opens the whole game up, and you're having conversations with a lot of different complex political...
Yeah.
It's an extremely dense political intrigue. It's like a Dune or something. But the fact that you're talking to these people, and the fact that people you don't directly control are having conversations with them, they're going to say and do things you're not going to...
be able to influence.
And you're going to have... They're going to try to exert their influence.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you're going to want to have dice in this.
And eventually what that means is that there's no way this won't devolve into a fight.
Yeah, there's nothing but fighting. It's like, oh, well, maybe you can give me a discount on these potions. And it's like, no. Fight!
Gonna give me a discount now.
It's black, and you come back, you're on the battle screen.
The shop is now 10 times bigger somehow.
Yeah. And then you win, and he gives you a discount.
Yeah.
This is how all disputes are settled in this world.
Again, you could just go with, wow, you made a good argument. Yeah, I'll give you the discount.
Yes, that doesn't work with everything, though.
No, it doesn't.
I mean... You're going to want to intimidate people. You're going to want to, persuade people. You're going to want to barter. You're going to want to, search out in the streets for information and shit.
And it just kind of runs counter to a lot of role-playing philosophies.
Yeah.
And that's maybe one thing I would say about it is it's trying to take the tabletop RPG and force it to act like Final Fantasy.
Yes.
And it's not... I don't think it does it.
No.
It's just... like combat, customized... on the fronts of combat and customization, it's great. It's fine. It's great at customization, it's fine at combat. But it just straight up doesn't mention any other part of a tabletop game.
Even, not even basic D&D, original D&D, the first one ever written, where the game was literally just a bunch of guys murder hoboing in a cave, you had a charisma stat. And if you want to convince people to do things, you roll a d20 plus your charisma modifier.
Uh-huh.
That's all this shit needs. Maybe d20 plus your spirit. I was just assuming that was how it worked, but it's not.
Yeah, and again, you can retrofit all that in there, but it should just be in there to start with.
Yeah.
I feel like, it's just... So I'm just really confused as to what this game wants you to do with it. It's just... a dungeon crawl, I guess?
I don't know. I think the best thing to do with it, like we said, although I'm pretty sure he didn't intend this, is to use this as a build-your-own RPG. you make sets of spells through this, you make classes through this, and you give it to players, and they pick from this. Although, at that point, why not just make your own fucking RPG?
Exactly. So, do you think this will become your staple game?
No.
No. Okay, good. Would you try it, though? Like, would you try a campaign if it ran on this?
Yes, I have tried it, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
The fighting actually works really well once you figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, like I said, it's a very smooth, efficient system.
And, you just add some very minor skill stuff. Maybe just do like an OD&D, you just have your base stats, you add a D20 to it, and you just make target numbers from there. It's the most basic thing possible, but it's something.
Yeah, it works.
It works.
And, hey, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Especially if you have good players.
Yes.
That being said, I would probably play this game. But I feel like I would want to make sure the DM kind of has everything together and isn't gonna... I don't mind, like, people being of different power levels, like min-maxing and all that, but...
It's really easy to do that.
It's really easy to do it to an extreme degree in this game.
And I'm getting the feeling you're going to have two different kinds of players, because there's only room for two different kinds of players. Like min-maxers and cosplayers.
Yeah.
Guys who just want to make an exact copy of, like, Setzer or Vincent Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
And
people who want to take this very technical game, strip it down to its nuts and bolts. It's already in the nuts and bolts, and they just want to finagle it till it breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Final Fantasy it's both of those things. And it does capture both of those things both very well, but I don't think they would mix together. Yeah,
it's kind of like it tried to rip Final Fantasy directly from the source and put it on a table and go, all right, let's play it. And I think you need a little more work before Final Fantasy is ready for a Saturday night tabletop session. So this game does have some additional sources, like a Magicite system and a Summon Aeon system.
That's cool.
That's on the actual website. And so these are kind of alternate rules you can try.
But they don't have a skill system or like any kind of role playing.
I didn't see that, no.
Yeah.
It might be there. I don't know. I may have missed it. Does anyone really talk about this game on the forums much?
No, I've never heard about it until you mentioned it.
Okay, cool. So, yeah.
I would not be surprised if we are actually the most advertisement this game has ever gotten.
I don't know, maybe. But, yeah, so let's talk about some personal builds then, shall we?
Yes, let's do that.
I went first last week. I'll let you go first this week.
All right. I made the sexiest man in Final Fantasy, the sexiest man in video games, both year. Sky Pirate. So, even though this is a very RP not friendly system, I kind of think I made him. It really reflects him, even though 12 is a game that's like so super customizable. It can be anything you want. I think I got him down to his essence. He pretty much agility with spirit. So he has some MP. He can hit anything. He has enough strength to do damage to it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
His weapon is, of course, a rifle. It's just a level 1 weapon with long range, and I have break magic. I'm just breaking their magic stats. So he is an anti-mage sniper.
Nice.
And his armor, it's just balanced. And I have 2 resistance on it, fire and ice, so I take half from what's probably going to be the most common elements. I have a bronze bangle.
Can you, do you have that many points for resistance on armor?
I don't know.
I think, like, you might have 1 or 0 for level 1.
Oh, well, then I don't have anything on armor.
Okay.
It's pretty fucking minor.
Yeah. I don't know, I was just...
But my abilities are as, I have the scan spell used on my speed. I also added on the steal as well property. So anytime I can scan someone, I can steal their money or their item.
That's a tech?
Yes.
Okay.
And I was noticing their steal system is kind of weird. This is another one that depends on how nice the DM is, because enemies apparently have dropped weapons and they have stealable items. Like drop and stealable
the same
items.
way it works in Final Fantasy.
Yeah. So you have these items that might drop when they die, and this item that you will only get if you steal it. So I got that on scan, which is really nice. I can see his weaknesses. For his command secondary power, I got manipulate, which controls them body and mind. Thinking this, I'm pretty much reflavoring it to steal hearts and tactics, the rogue ability.
Yeah.
Because, that's Baltier as fuck right there.
He gets it. He gets a better version of it.
Really? I never got that far in the game to get him.
Yeah, his ability is called piracy.
Yeah.
And instead of steal, it's plunder.
Oh.
He plunders their heart.
Oh my.
He also gets like the call shot that Mustadio gets.
Yeah.
He's really cool.
Fuck yeah. And the passive one I got was Secret Hunt, because he's more of, he's a treasure hunter, and this one, it makes sure you get more dropped items.
Oh, nice.
So he is a loot whore and a whore.
Whore. Aha!
But yeah, he's pretty good. He's got, crappy crit and evade, but the best you can possibly get. He's got 140 HP, 14 MP. He works.
It's alright.
Yeah.
Cool. So I made a Dragoon.
Sweet.
Just a Dragoon, because they're my favorite class in Final Fantasy.
They're just rad.
Yeah. So I have a lot more evened out stats. I have a strength of 10, a magic of 4, a vitality of 10, a spirit of 6, and an agility of 10. Because honestly, Dragoons always kind of struck me as the jack of all trades among the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
They're very kind of spread out. So he wears defense armor. He uses spears. Flavor. It's just a level 1 weapon. He's rocking 160 HP with 11 MP. He has a 12 speed because I took the sub-command that the support skill that gives me plus 2 speed. He has decent evade, decent accuracy, decent resist, decent everything except magic. His magic is pretty shit. But he's okay at everything else. So for text, I made a ability that was originally going to be jump, but then I found out jump was a command skill, so I changed it to charge because he has a spear, and Dragoons traditionally have horses.
Yes.
So, the primary effect on this is power attack at level 1 with a strong power. So basically what that means is anytime I hit somebody with my power attack, because it has a strong power, I add 1.5 times my attack power, which is my base damage.
Yes.
I roll 2 dice, and those dice are 1 weapon dice higher than what I originally do. So I have a lance. I put 5 points into physical damage, so I do a 1d10. If I use charge, that goes up to 1d12. And then I roll it twice. And then I multiply that number by 10. And then I add it to 40. And that's my damage. And this one has the time charge ability on it. And so it costs 12 speed points to use at the level I have it, and I get 12 speed points every turn.
Nice.
So hey, just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I'm a cavalier with none of the downsides.
That's great.
It's broken. No, it's not broken, actually. I don't think my damage potential is that high. I also took a second ability called Lancet, because that's a very... traditionally, Dragoons have gotten this ability. It's a healing spell because there is no drain HP. So the primary effect is healing. I took the secondary effect where I can only use it on myself, and that lowered the effective MP cost to where I can now do this with 12 speed points as well.
Nice.
So I can use any of my attacks if I just spend the entire turn doing it, which is not hard. My command skill with jump lets me jump up, be untouchable for a round, and then I come down and deal double damage.
Also nice.
And my support was quickness, which gives me a +2 to speed. Yeah, like I said, my weapon is a lance, level 1. It has a strength of 5 and a magic attack power. It has an attack power of strength of 5 and a magic attack power of 1. So no magic damage, all physical damage. And the armor, I just gave him like half plate. It's defense level 1 defense armor. He gets plus 35 HP.
Nice.
But yeah, he's a big tanky. He's a bit tanky. He's a bit fighty. He's not a bit mage. And he's a bit fast. I feel like this guy would do pretty good though. He'd be.
Yeah, he sounds pretty rough. Sounds like a badass.
Mm-hmm. Also, I gave him a buckler to give him a +2 to evasion. That's the guard, as they're called in this game. Yeah, he's just purely focused on combat because this engine is purely focused on combat.
So why the fuck not?
Yeah, and yeah, he'd do much like Dragoons. He's focused on that one big hit. Not a whole lot of small hits. Not a whole lot of combo hits. Just whoosh, spear him from the stratosphere.
Nice.
But yeah, so hopefully that kind of helped clarify some of the stuff about this game and kind of shows you what the customizability can do. Like I said, and some of the concepts we came up with on the fly, like Cody did over there with Queena or Quifa or whatever his name is.
Queena.
He
has a Q from the Q Marsh.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, honestly, 50% of this game is character creation. The other 50% is 70% of this game is character creation. The other 30% is actually playing it.
Yeah.
So once you get past character creation, this game just chugs right along beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because that's a good and a bad thing. It's good because, hey, things are moving along. Things are going quickly. The story's going. It's also bad because they don't really put in much for players who like to
do anything but fight.
Combat maneuvers or do flanking or get higher ground, which obviously you can put those in. You're the DM, whatever. But
so,
you know. Do you think this feels like a Final Fantasy game?
In some ways.
Some ways.
In some ways it does. In the most important ways, maybe not.
Mm-hmm. I always kind of thought that this game, if I was going to run it, it wouldn't be a Final Fantasy game. I'd treat it more like Yu Yu Hakusho or Hunter x Hunter.
Yes.
Where the customization of one's abilities is a lot more important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a lot of it starts to make more sense if you do that.
That being said, if we were going to do a Hunter x Hunter or Yu Yu Hakusho game, I would do Double Cross.
Yeah, Double Cross.
Which is a game we're definitely going to talk about one of these days.
Yeah, we need to get it. Oh, we'll get to it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Double Cross kicks ass in some ways.
In some ways. You probably say that about a lot of the games in that closet. Yeah, it totally kicks ass. Sometimes. Which is exactly what you can say about Pathfinder, though.
Yeah.
It kicks ass sometimes.
In some ways, this game is awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so if that piqued your interest about this system, it is actually free. You can download it at the site. We'll put a link to it if you're interested. If not, you can just Google, Zodiac Final Fantasy RPG, and boom, you'll get it.
It'll be there.
Yeah. You can download that, and like I said, it's free. It's fan created, and if it piques your interest, and if you don't mind spending a little time reading it, because you're gonna have to.
It's your lord, yes. This DM really has to be on the ball for this game.
Yeah, this is a game really reliant on your DM having his shit together.
Yeah, whereas in most D&D games, every D&D game, once you figure out the system, the game pretty much plays itself.
Yeah, and you could say that about this game.
Yeah.
But on the player side.
Yeah.
For the DM, you have to basically there is no bestiary, I saw. So you're going to have to make...
That's fucking rough.
You have to make all that shit. They have a section on monster creation. It's basically just the character creation. Hey, if you don't mind the crunch, if you don't mind the reading, if you're good at explaining systems, I would say give this game a shot because I think it's got some good points to it. Do it for a one-off. I don't think it's going to replace Pathfinder as anyone's current game, but it's good for a try and it's free. So what the fuck? So next week, we're going to talk, like we said earlier, we're going to talk about a different Final Fantasy RPG that approaches the same concept in a very different way.
Yeah, what were you saying about this game tries to mold Final Fantasy into an RPG?
Yeah, and I feel like maybe this next game kind of takes the opposite approach, where it kind of tries to mold the spirit of Final Fantasy to an RPG setting.
Yeah.
And we will talk about that more next time on 20th Level Commoners when we get around to Final Fantasy RPG 3rd Edition. See you guys next time.
Da, 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 da.